the sea was full of hundreds of ships, and I didn't really know where I was going. I thought something had gone wrong, but obviously this was the plan. Then the tide went out, and we had to jump ashore and wade up this beach, up here, soaking wet from the waist down. The curious thing is, I can't remember that. I know I must have been wet from the waist down, but did we change our trousers? Couldn't have changed the trousers, could we? I suppose being 18, it didn't matter being wet from the waist down. Anyway, there we were on this beach here. Quite quiet. There weren't any Germans about. That was all happening some further miles inland. And we were aware we were on some great adventure. And I'd seen this film by Laurence Olivier only about 3 weeks before, Henry V, and I suppose I identified here I am, this like my English ancestors landing in France. The thing we did when we got here was to get dug in. That is, you dug a trench. It's a slit trench, it's called, sort of about that big, and two of you dug this and lived in it, slept in it, like being a rabbit in a sort of burrow surrounded by clay and soil. It was supposed to be about 5 foot deep, I think, but you had to compromise between the effort of digging this damn thing and the safety of being deep or shallow. I was a bit physically lazy, so I opted for the rather shallow trench, really. First time I saw a German soldier was in a field very like this. We were in a wood just behind there, and we were to run across the field into the trees opposite, where it was believed the German infantry were. And smoke bombs were put down, and the whole field here was full of white smoke. Some of the bombs went wrong, they hit trees behind us and fell amongst us. And then we were ordered to run across this field. I mean, some people did, some didn't. I lay flat on the ground. It sounded very dangerous to me. I could hear bullets coming out of the smoke, hitting the leaves just above my head. So I lay flat there, peering into this smoke. And after a time, to my absolute amazement, coming out of this white smoke, there was a German soldier. I'd never seen one before. You see, I'd been brought up in the war, and there was picture posts and these magazines, always full of photographs of German soldiers. And there was the actual real thing in front of me, about 10 feet away, I should think, and he looked about 16, and he saw me, and his hands were above his head, like that, looking at me with absolute horror and fear, white in the face with fear, and too terrified to actually move towards me. And I must have looked rather frightening, really, because I'd got this rifle with a bayonet on and a steel hair at my helmet, and I must have looked like the terrible German infantry he'd heard about. So I must have realised he was frightened of my gun pointing at him, so I put it down on the ground and beckoned him towards me, and he very slowly began to walk towards me. And he got a bit near and somebody shot him. But running someone behind me, just seen a German soldier, and they fired, and he shot, and he lay on the ground, and I and some other soldiers came up, and we sort of undid his trousers where there was these little neat bullet holes right across his stomach. I don't know what happened to him, really. He must have been very badly wounded, or perhaps he died. I don't know. This is really rather remarkable. I've actually now discovered somewhere where I certainly was 40 years ago. I can distinctly remember being here. We were in trenches just outside this little village here, and I remember walking here, and there was a broken wall which I climbed over, which you can now see has been repaired. I'm lying here in this tomb the way I did in July 1944, possibly exactly the same tomb which I did spend a night, and certainly the same cemetery. How it happened was we were outside this churchyard in slit trenches, and we were told we were going to be attacked by the SS that night. I came down to get some water from a pump in the village there, and a feeling of absolute doom came over me. I thought, oh God, we're certainly all going to be killed by these SS, who I'd read so much about in the paper. So I thought, I'm opting out of this one. So I decided to spend the night here in this little grave, thinking no one would notice me, and I could come out in the morning to surrender to the Germans. So I spent the night here, and you might think it's uncomfortable, but it's no more uncomfortable than being in the slit trench. And in the morning I came out, and nobody had even noticed I'd gone. Yes, this reminds me, really, of the first thing I had to do in Normandy. I was told to get a spade, and a rifle, of course. We went down a little road, and there was a pile of dead bodies, British, Canadian and German, which we had to bury extremely rapidly. And it was very hot weather, and as we turned them over, the other side was entirely full of writhing maggots. An extraordinary sight, really. And it was very difficult to dig a grave because the ground was so hard, and we were pretty frightened because there were bullets coming over nearby. So we dug these very shallow graves, about 1 foot, maybe 2 foot deep, I don't know. And yeah, these are the tombs of the soldiers of about my time here. This is a private, age 19, of the regiment I was with. It seems odd now I'm here, I'm still alive, age 58, and they had 40 years of life and they're all dead. It's a sort of fluke, really, that I wasn't one of them, really. I didn't... That comes back to me. I got used to everything else. The sight of the dead always puzzled me. I found there was something odd about somebody I'd known well who'd suddenly turned into a piece of meat. It was suddenly confronted with the mystery of death at the age of 18. And these are the British soldiers, and over there, the German. I've just been looking at the dates of their birth, and I always remembered the Germans looking much younger than us. That's quite right. I've looked. Lots of them were age 17, whereas the average age of the British soldiers here are somewhere about 18 to 22. I was in a trench with another man, and shells kept falling all around us, and one landed extremely near. You got used to shells, you could hear them getting louder and louder and louder, and at a certain point, you knew it was all right, it was going over beyond you. This one went louder and louder and louder, and I could hear, as if time had slowed down incredibly, it hit the soil very near us, then seemed a long wait, and it exploded, and suddenly everything went black. And I was laying looking at the sky, and I saw the sun had gone out, and I saw what was happening, and this sky was full of earth, which was very slowly coming down on top of me. And I lay in this trench with all this earth over me, and I remember a little frog hopping round on my face in all this damp soil. One by one, the casualties must have been enormous, really, because when the war was ending, I found I was being surrounded by strangers. Almost none of the people I'd started out in Normandy with were still with me. And they all seemed like youngsters. That is, they're about 3 months younger than me, really. I mean, it sounds terrible now, but after months of this sort of thing, you become sort of somewhat immune to the brutality of the whole thing.